The shock that no one saw coming. What if I told you that a single social media post, written in a few seconds, could shake the foundations of one of the world's closest alliances? What if that post involved a bridge already built, already paid for, and already desperately needed, suddenly being turned into a political weapon? That's exactly what happened on Monday, February 9, 2026. Without warning, President Trump took to Truth Social and announced that he would block the opening of a brand new bridge between the United States and Canada. Not a proposal, not a negotiation, a threat. This wasn't some future project or half-finished idea. This bridge is done, fully built, 8 years of construction, billions of dollars invested, and here's the key detail that changes everything. Canada paid for the entire thing. Yet Trump's demand was blunt and extraordinary. He said the bridge would not open unless the United States received full compensation and gained ownership of perhaps at least one half of the asset. No compromise language, no explanation of process, just a line drawn in public. At first glance, this might sound like another headline designed to provoke outrage, another flash of political theater, another moment people might scroll past and forget. But if you slow down and really look at what this means, it tells you something far more serious about where we are right now. Because this isn't just about a bridge. The bridge in question is the Gordie Howe International Bridge, connecting Windsor, Ontario to Detroit, Michigan. It's named after a Canadian hockey legend who spent most of his career playing for Detroit's beloved Red Wings, a symbol of cross-border friendship and shared identity. Physically, it's massive. 6 traffic lanes, a long span over the Detroit River, dedicated paths for pedestrians and cyclists, modern ports of entry on both sides, direct connections to Highway 401 in Canada and Interstate 75 in the United States. Economically, it's even bigger. Studies show this bridge will save trucks hundreds of thousands of hours every year by reducing congestion. Over 3 decades, that translates into billions of dollars in savings. It allows cargo to move seamlessly from Montreal to Miami without hitting city traffic lights. For Michigan, it's a lifeline. For American trucking companies, it's a cost-cutting dream. For North American trade, it's essential infrastructure. And again, this part matters. Canada paid for all of it, every dollar. Roughly 5 to 6 billion Canadian dollars. The US federal government did not fund it. So why is the American president threatening to block it? According to Trump's own explanation, his anger stems from a waiver granted years ago under President Obama. That waiver allowed Canada to bypass the Buy American Act when building the bridge. In other words, Canada was not forced to buy American steel or American construction materials for a bridge built on Canadian soil, using Canadian money. That's it. That's the grievance. Canada paid billions to build a bridge that helps both countries. And Trump is furious that Canada wasn't required to spend even more money buying American steel for a project it already fully funded. Now pause for a moment and let that sink in. The compensation Trump is demanding isn't for American investment because there wasn't any. It isn't for American labor because Canada funded the project. It's compensation for the fact that the US did not force Canada to buy American products for a Canadian-funded bridge. And because of that, Trump says the United States should own half of it. This is where the story stops being strange and starts becoming alarming. Because bridges don't exist in isolation. They exist within systems, legal systems, trade systems, diplomatic systems. And Trump's threat immediately raises a critical question. Can he even do this? The answer, based on every report so far, is deeply unclear. The bridge is owned jointly by Canada and the state of Michigan, not the federal government. Michigan negotiated the agreement years ago. Construction is complete. The opening was scheduled for this very month. So when Trump says he will not allow the bridge to open, what exactly does that mean? What legal authority would he use? No one knows. Not the White House. Not reporters. Not even state officials. But here's the thing. Even if the legal path is murky, the message is crystal clear. This was not an accident. This was not careless wording. This was leverage, and once you see that, the entire story changes. Before we go deeper into that, ask yourself one question and really think about it. If a bridge that benefits American businesses, American workers, and American states can be threatened like this, what else can be turned into a bargaining chip? Hold on to that thought, because in the next part, we're going to look at why this bridge matters so much, who actually gets hurt if it stays closed, and why this threat may backfire in ways that even Trump supporters in Michigan didn't expect. Who really loses if the bridge stays closed? If you want to understand why this threat is so explosive, you have to understand one simple fact. Blocking this bridge hurts the United States at least as much as it hurts Canada, if not more. The Windsor-Detroit corridor isn't just another border crossing. It's the single busiest trade route between the two countries. Day after day, trucks move auto parts, food, medical supplies, consumer goods, and industrial materials through this narrow bottleneck. Right now, that traffic relies mainly on 2 aging crossings, the Ambassador Bridge and the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel. Both are chronically congested. Delays are common. Costs pile up fast. Every minute a truck sits idle is money lost. That's why this new bridge was built. According to economic studies, the Gordie Howe Bridge will save roughly 850,000 truck hours per year. Over 30 years, that's more than $2 billion in savings. That's not abstract math, that's lower shipping costs, cheaper goods, more reliable supply chains. And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. A Democratic senator from Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin, didn't mince words. She said the bridge would allow cargo to move from Montreal to Miami without ever stopping at a streetlight. She called it a huge boost for Michigan's economy. Then came the blunt assessment. Threatening this bridge means Trump has lost the plot on what's actually good for the United States. That's not rhetoric, it's reality. Michigan wants this bridge open. American trucking companies want this bridge open. U.S. manufacturers want this bridge open. Blocking it doesn't punish Canada in some neat, contained way. It jams American supply chains, raises American costs, and hits American workers. So why do it? Because this isn't about infrastructure efficiency. It's about power. Trump appears to believe that because the bridge crosses into U.S. territory, it can be used as leverage, a pressure point, a way to force concessions, not just on steel, but on tariffs, trade negotiations, dairy disputes, alcohol distribution, and even Canada's dealings with China. In other words, the bridge becomes a hostage. And hostage tactics always follow the same logic. You take something the other side needs, even if it also hurts you, and you threaten to withhold it until you get what you want. The danger here is that this approach ignores something critical. Allies don't respond to hostage tactics the same way adversaries do. When an ally feels coerced, they don't usually cave. They adapt. And Canada has already been adapting. Over the past year, Canada has signed a flurry of new trade agreements. It has imposed counter tariffs. It has diversified supply chains. It has invested in manufacturing closer to home. Not far from Detroit, battery plants are being built on Canadian soil. This isn't random, it's strategic. From Canada's perspective, this bridge episode confirms a growing fear that any shared project with the United States can be turned into a weapon overnight. Think about the message this sends. Canada spends $5 billion building infrastructure that helps both countries. The U.S. president responds by demanding ownership and compensation. Canada buys American fighter jets. The president threatens decertification. Canada explores trade with China. The president threatens massive tariffs. At some point, a rational partner starts asking a hard question. Is this actually a partnership, or is it a series of ultimatums? And that question doesn't stop at Canada's border. Germany is watching. Japan is watching. Every middle power that relies on U.S. cooperation is watching. They're seeing a pattern where shared systems, trade agreements, infrastructure, defense arrangements can be flipped into pressure tools without warning. That creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is poison for long-term cooperation. Here's the irony. The more the United States uses leverage like this, the less leverage it actually has over time. Why? Because allies start designing systems that don't depend on American approval. They build alternative routes. They sign alternative deals. They reduce exposure. They make sure the next bridge, the next factory, the next supply chain doesn't require a green light from Washington. And once that happens, the leverage disappears. So when Trump threatens to block this bridge, he isn't just risking short-term economic pain. He's accelerating a long-term shift away from American centrality. We're going to zoom out and connect this bridge story to a much bigger trend, one that explains why this moment matters far beyond Detroit and Windsor. Before you move on, ask yourself this. If you were Canada, would you ever fund a project that depends on U.S. cooperation again? The pattern that allies can't ignore. The bridge story feels shocking because it's concrete steel, roads, borders. But it's only the latest chapter in a pattern that's been forming for years. Once you see that pattern, this stops being about one bridge and starts being about global alignment. Look at the recent signals. German investment in the United States has dropped sharply. Canada has rolled out counter tariffs totaling over $150 billion. Political parties in Canada have openly questioned major U.S. defense purchases. Public events involving American leaders have faced visible backlash abroad. Each incident on its own might be dismissed. Together they paint a picture. Allies are recalculating. And recalculation doesn't mean hostility. It means risk management. From the outside, what allies see is an America willing to blur the line between negotiation and coercion. Trade disputes become personal. Infrastructure becomes leverage. Legal frameworks become optional. The bridge threat fits perfectly into that narrative. Trump's complaints, alcohol sales, dairy tariffs, China talks have nothing to do with the bridge itself. Yet the bridge becomes the enforcement mechanism. That's a critical shift. In stable alliances, disputes are handled through established channels. Trade bodies, arbitration, negotiation, retaliation is proportional and targeted. In unstable ones, disputes spill over. Everything becomes connected. Nothing is safe from being pulled into the fight. That's what makes this moment dangerous. Because once allies believe that any shared project can be weaponized, they stop sharing projects. And here's the part that should worry Americans the most. This doesn't isolate the allies, it isolates the United States. Canada doesn't stop trading, it trades elsewhere. Germany doesn't stop investing, it invests elsewhere. Supply chains don't disappear, they reroute. The world doesn't freeze, it adapts. And adaptation reduces dependence. This is why many analysts say the real impact of this bridge threat won't be whether the bridge opens this month or next. The real impact is the lesson it teaches. The lesson is simple and brutal. Do not build critical infrastructure that depends on American goodwill. That lesson will echo long after this headline fades. We'll look at what happens next, why Trump is boxed into a lose-lose situation, and what the ultimate payoff of this story really is. Before you continue, think about this question and be honest with yourself. Is fear an effective way to lead allies in the long run? The lose-lose endgame and the real payoff. At this point, Trump has two options, and neither is a win. Option 1, he backs down. The bridge opens. Trade flows improve. Michigan breathes a sigh of relief. And Trump's threat is exposed as empty bluster. That outcome avoids economic damage, but it carries a political cost, because allies will remember that the threat was made at all. The trust doesn't magically come back. The warning has already been received. Option 2, he follows through. He attempts to block or delay the bridge. Legal battles erupt. Michigan's economy takes a hit. American trucking companies pay the price. And every ally watching concludes that the United States is willing to harm itself to coerce partners. That conclusion is devastating for leadership. Either way, Canada has already learned what it needed to learn. Canada now knows that even fully funded, mutually beneficial projects can be turned into bargaining chips. That knowledge changes behavior. It shapes future decisions. It accelerates diversification. And that is the real story. Not the bridge itself, not the ownership demand, but the shift in mindset. Alliances aren't just treaties and meetings. They're built on predictability, on the assumption that cooperation won't be punished retroactively, on the belief that shared investments are safe. When that belief breaks, alliances don't collapse overnight. They quietly erode. Countries hedge. They prepare exit ramps. They make sure the next bridge, literal or metaphorical, doesn't cross into uncertain territory. So when historians look back at this moment, they may not ask, did the Gordie Howe Bridge open on time? They may ask something much bigger. Was this the moment when allies finally decided that dependence on the United States was too risky? That's the payoff here. The uncomfortable truth delivered at the end. Power built on threats creates compliance at best and resentment at worst. Power built on trust creates stability. And right now, the world is watching which path America chooses. Before you close this video, ask yourself one last question and drop your answer in the comments. If you were an ally, would you build your future around a partner who treats bridges like hostages? Because that answer may explain where the world is heading next.